It's been a while since we did an actual Q&A, so let's have a fun Q&A here and talk about what you guys would like to know.
Welcome to Uplink.
And if you'd like to keep up to date on all the things in terms of announcements for the podcast and what we'll be talking about, keep up to date on Twitter at Uplink Podcast or as part of our Discord, and a link to that will be in the description. So starting off, a question from Zio here. What Star Wars projects would you like to see within the next decade? And that's a huge, huge question. And that's not just in the next 5 years, it's the next 10 years. What would I like to see in a Star Wars game or Star Wars project in the next decade? Star Wars project could be film, could be gaming. I'm going to take those in two directions here. First off, let's talk about film. What I would love to see is more of the smaller scale Star Wars stories. I'd love to see Star Wars stories that aren't around the huge galaxy-changing parts of Star Wars. I want to see a rom-com. I want to see standard genres told within a Star Wars universe. That's what interests me. I would love to see that, whether it's a TV show or a movie. I think a TV show would probably be more popular around in that and would definitely suit the TV style better. So that's what I'd like to see on the film, TV side of things, but on the gaming side of things, I would love to see something that uses Coruscant. Please, 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 please. Something that uses Coruscant. I love Coruscant. I would love to see more. Next decade, let's say in 2031. Oh my gosh. Crazy thing, that's 10 years from now. Seems like it should be so much longer. What I would love to see is more Star Wars games. I would love to see, maybe not every year, but every 2 years, we get something that's new in Star Wars. And I would also love to see this, a small scale, scalable Star Wars game. Something that leans into all of the new things around gaming, whether that's currently or years down the road. Something that just embodies the world of gaming. Would love to see a Star Wars Battle Royale as well. A Star Wars Battle Royale would be fantastic in my opinion. I think it would be so cool. Again, the universe of Star Wars is so incredible and is so loved by so many people that they could copy and paste whatever genre is out there, and I would love to play it. Survival horror game, Ewok, its own standalone game, would be fantastic. A fighting game, but 3D. Heroes vs. Villains, the game. Would love to see it. I would love to see more smaller scale Star Wars experiences like
Fallen Order
and Star Wars Squadrons. Again, that's a franchise that I would love to see continue with the rise of esports. And by the time this episode comes out, Eckhart's Ladder will have just finished the amazing, huge tournament for Star Wars Squadrons. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. It's been a blast. And I hope that you all enjoy it. Or did enjoy it. By the time this episode comes out, it should be finished, but we shall see. Really looking forward to that. Next question comes from Dazed Pinhead, or Daniel Schilling, friend of the podcast and supporter of the show on Patreon. We greatly appreciate your support, Daniel. Why don't Star Wars games have any longevity anymore? One of the biggest franchises in cinema, yet games just die out. Why, oh why? What can be done to appeal to non-Star Wars fans? Again, one of the things that I think would allow a longer scale, longevity-driven Star Wars game is just continued support. Continued support, whether that be through DLCs and expansions of the story, or for a single-player Star Wars game. Or we see my dream is a game that's multiplayer-driven that doesn't have heroes, and is supported through DLC updates, whether that be in seasons, battle pass type stuff, things that can keep people invested over time. And it doesn't have to be super frequently, like month to month. It can be every 3 months. They have every 4 months, every 5 months, they have a battle pass, and that's the season. And the season brings in new content. It brings in new cosmetics. that people can continue to pour money into the game, and it has a great depth to its community communication and support. So instead of, okay, we don't know if this game is going to continue, say, hey, at the beginning, this is going to be a game that's going to last 10 years. We want to continue to support this game for 10 years, and we will continue to communicate what we're going to be bringing. And also, the storyline for this game is canon, but the rest of the game is not. So we can bring whoever the heck we want to in this game. That's the thing. Games are becoming a service-driven industry. And I don't mean like service and you have to pay a monthly fee type thing. I mean services as you buy this game and it gets supported as a service and you pay for cosmetics, and that's how the game is supported. That is the way that games are moving forward, and I think that's why Star Wars games are continuing to die out. What I love with Fallen Order was that they're continuing to bring in reasons to replay the game. They had the tournament addition to the game that was great and no one expected it. And then they have the Xbox Series X, S, and PlayStation 5 editions of the game that are be coming out are optimized for those new consoles. And it's another game, it's another reason to replay that game. And when that comes out, I guarantee that there's going to be more discussion on how beautiful the game is, how great the story is, and excitement for the next one. That's what needs to be done. And to appeal to non-Star Wars fans, it just needs to be a robust experience. It needs to be something that, even if it wasn't Star Wars, people would want to play it. That is the thing that would keep people who are non-Star Wars fans and also maybe invest them into the game or into the franchise as a whole. That's what I see that's what I see games really needing to bring, is this game stand on its own even if Star Wars wasn't attached to it. I think Battlefront 2 did a really good job of this, but some of the things were lesser quality and was able to rest on the Star Wars license and the name of the Star Wars brand to bring people in. And friend of the podcast, Yepper. All three of these great people are friends of the podcast, and I love to see support and communication. I love it when people reach out on Twitter. I love it when people reach out in the Discord and we have great discussions on why a Star Wars game is great, Star Wars game is bad, Star Wars movie is great, Star Wars movie is bad. I love that discussion because I want to foster a community that can have these discussions and not be toxic or negative. But Yebber asks, what motivated you to start making podcasts and why Battlefront? And did any podcasters / content creators inspire you? So what motivated me to start a podcast is I love podcasts. I love audio. And I'm the type of person, when I enjoy something, I want to recreate it as best I can. And podcasts were one of those things. I started listening to podcasts in 2013. I discovered them and downloaded podcasts from tech shows to Harry Potter podcast. Mugglecast was one of the first podcasts that I listened to. And oh my gosh, I love that show. And while it didn't inspire the format of Uplink or the Battlefront podcast, it definitely had an impact on, hey, I can talk about this thing that I love and people will listen. And like, the reason I chose Battlefront is I was looking for a Battlefront podcast and I didn't find any. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make the podcast that I would want to listen to. So I did. My brother and I, cold Colorado night in November, went to our garage, bundled up in our jackets, these big puffy jackets, and I had a single microphone that we used for YouTube stuff. We went out there and we recorded 2 or 3 episodes of Battlefront podcast, and that is how it started. So between 2013 and 2015, when Battlefront came out, I did as much research as I could. I listened to as many shows as possible, and tried to learn from as many people as I could, find what I liked, find what I didn't like, and try to stay away from the things that I didn't like and do the things that I'd really liked. The transition music in between topics that has been a part of Battlefront podcast and parts of Uplink was inspired by the Nickelodeon show. So Nickelodeon did a podcast by Hector Navarro, I believe is his name, and he interviewed the people that made some of the best animations and shows on Nickelodeon, even outside of Nickelodeon, and talk about their experiences getting into the industry. And that was I love that podcast. I love the storytelling. I love the editing, and I love the music. So I was like, you know what? I think that is a great feature. So I'm gonna do my own take on it. And that's how the transition music came around. And that transition music is actually from Star Wars video games. So did any podcasters or content creators inspire you? Yes, Aaron Mankey from Lore. Lore was one of the podcasts I listened to. There was a nerdy podcast. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but one of the hosts was listening to Lore. And this was a little bit, so it was March of 2015 is when Lore came out. And it was a little bit before I actually started doing the Battlefront podcast. I loaded up as many podcasts as I could fit on my little iPod, and I cranked out some Lore and built a studio space for. Originally, it was for YouTube, and then it slowly grew into podcast stuff. So Lore is a great podcast on the dark history of around the world. I've actually watched his live show twice. Anytime he comes around, I try to go and watch his live show because it's so good. Hopefully we'll be able to see those again once COVID ends. But another one that greatly influenced me or inspired me was, again, Lore, Mugglecast, and then I'm a huge tech guy. I love learning about as much tech as possible. And one of the probably the most podcasts I listen to are tech podcasts, usually in the Apple space. I love listening to all the Apple news stuff and keeping up to date on technology as a whole. And I listen to a bunch of daily podcasts on Mac News and Apple News. One I still listen to this day is called the Accidental Tech Podcast. And that is a show that has inspired a little bit of the show, especially the quality of it. It's these three developers that talk about Apple news and tech news, and it's a cold open. has a lot of kind of the things that inspired the rebrand of Uplink in a way. Basically, the quality of the edits, and you may not all realize this, but an edit of the podcast actually takes quite a bit of time. Usually it's an hour to 2 hours, depending on who we have on the show. And the one that we used to announce, Wayfinder, was actually a 5 gig audio file. And we had 5 guests on the show. And that one probably took me not 2 full days, but 2 days to edit that episode. It's quite the time. So if you have any other questions for me, definitely reach out on Twitter or on the Discord. Would love to hear any questions you have and interact on Star Wars, on gaming, on anything else. Thank you. Thank you for Yepper, Daniel, and Zio for reaching out and asking these questions. Greatly appreciated that.